G'day. How you doing, Peter?
Howdy. Very good, Joe.
Howdy. Oh, yeah, that's funny. Do you guys say howdy down in Australia?
Oh no, I think I just probably watch a lot of American TV and
American
listen to
TV.
podcasts and
You
all the
probably saw
rest.
my Garth Brooks T-shirt on right now. So-
That's it. Yeah, nice one.
That's funny. Yeah, it's good to chat with you. I'm looking forward to joining you down in Australia too very soon for DataEngBytes. So, it's,
Very excited.
yeah,
Great
yeah.
to have you back this year.
Thanks. Yeah, I had a lot of fun last year, man. So it's a blast.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, so I run. My name is Peter Hanssens. I run a cloud consultancy called Cloud Shuttle. I'm also an AWS serverless hero, so bit of an
Nice.
AWS fanboy. And I run a bunch of data engineering meetups across Australia. I started them out in Sydney, and they've just sort of slowly grown. And also the data engineering conference here in Australia called DataEngBytes. So yeah, I try to keep myself busy. I'm
Currently.
also yeah, I'm also a part-time soccer coach for my son's under sevens.
Yeah.
So, that's probably my most challenging role. In fact, I guess.
Well, at least you're honest. No, that's really cool. Yeah, when I think of you, it's like I think you're uh, yeah, sort of. I don't know if I mean it's just a huge force in Australia, right? When it comes to communities and meetups and stuff. So good on you. I mean, I run meetups, but nowhere on the scale that you do, where you're at multiple cities and so forth. So it's a lot of work. So and conferences. So
Yeah, oh, thank you. I mean, I guess, I've just seen the value in connecting with people and bringing people together, and I don't know, I caught the bug and just got hooked or whatever, and it just kind of spawned from there, and it's been an exciting ride. I'm not going to lie, sometimes it does get a little bit on the tiring side. There's always a lot going on. It's a lot to coordinate and stuff like that, but you do definitely get a lot of energy, off the people that you meet, and sort of, and
mhm.
just seeing the buzz, and what's coming out in the community and stuff like that as well. It's pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. It's I was surprised too. To be fair, I didn't really when I think of data communities and scenes, Australia isn't the first place that comes to mind. I am also in America, so I tend to have a very American centric view of the world, which is good and bad, I guess. But I was shocked actually at how healthy and vibrant the communities were. In Melbourne and in Sydney and so forth. It was very very cool to see. So.
Yeah, I think it comes off the back of perhaps Australia being a fairly early cloud adopter.
Mm,
Most of the major clouds opened Sydney regions fairly early on in the piece, and there's been lots of big workloads migrate there. Probably one of our biggest sort of startup success stories, Atlassian went all in on AWS and stuff like that, and so there's a bit of an engineering culture there, and like a pretty high adoption of data engineering practices across the board, and perhaps it's just a side effect of how well Australia's embraced the cloud potentially.
mm.
Mm.
That's interesting. What do you think are some of the drivers of that early adoption?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I guess it probably had something to do with the startup ecosystem. Australia's a bit of a far flung place, and wanting to sort of embrace and engage with folks overseas in the states. If you really want to get anywhere with a startup, you really need to sort of get out of the Australian market as
Mm,
quickly as possible, and sort of start getting a foothold in the US markets, and potentially cloud allowed that lower barrier to entry, I suppose.
mm. That's interesting. Yeah, and I guess how long have you been doing the meetups and the conferences?
Yeah, so originally I started the Sydney Data Engineering Meetup, way back in, I think it was 2017.
Oh wow.
So 6 years ago or something like that. I was based in Sydney, and yeah, it's kind of flourished from there. It started in kind of funny circumstances because at the time I was hired at A Cloud Guru as their first starter hire. A Cloud Guru was this awesome Australian cloud education
Mm.
startup, lowering the barrier to entry to cloud certification, and they offered really engaging courses that helped you to get your solutions architect associate. Well, it was the exam preparation for it, but like there was a high likelihood that you'd pass your exam. And I had done quite a lot of their courses to sort of become a bit more sort of cloud savvy myself, and really great. And like it was just really cheap. It made it very accessible. I think
Hmm.
a lot of like sort of cloud education prior to that was like started at the $1,000 a day sort of level. So
Yeah.
and yeah, so it that was like a fascinating company. I was like a massive fanboy. I was just following them around whenever they came to visit, ran meetups and stuff like that. And so when it came time for them to do their first starter hire, I was, like Sam Cronenberg, their CEO, reached out to
Hmm.
me and sort of tapped me on the shoulder, and I was like, "Yeah, I think I quit my job as soon as the phone rang or whatever." And
Oh,
so
that's
it's like
funny.
it was super exciting, but I kind of had. I was a data analyst at the time, and I wasn't really super technical when it came to data engineering, and so I just, I had that, big sensation of like being out of my depth and having a bit of, fear of failure and stuff like that. So I really like because it was that they had a really fantastic like cutting edge stack, like Next.js, GraphQL, back end for front end. So all of their microservices architecture was amazing. I didn't want to sort of build out this data engineering stack that was just like from 20 years ago or something like that. I wanted something a little bit more cutting edge, and so I was like, okay, I need some mentors. I need some people to bounce some ideas off, ideally from startups doing a similar thing to me. Perhaps meet up with some folks who are the first starter hires of similar size startups and stuff like that. And so, I went on meetup.com, Googled, for data engineering meetups or data meetups in general. Couldn't really find anything that wasn't, run by recruiters or something like that. Um,
Right.
not to bash on them or anything, but like I couldn't find a real sort of technical practitioner focused meetup where I could really sort of bounce ideas off of folks. And so I had this crazy idea to just start the meetup myself and put it up on LinkedIn, invited everyone I could along to it, and it was actually a recruitment company that first hosted us, which was fantastic. And yeah, we had a couple of folks from interesting companies like Atlassian and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Like it was a small crowd, 20 folks in the beginning, and we took it off from there. And it was an instant success, but it's funny how over the course of 6 years, I'm sure you've experienced it like with, other initiatives that you've done in the past. It's, um, over time, these things start to snowball and it's just become, a really fun community to be part of, I guess. Um,
What
mm.
was your original meetup? What was it? Data engineering, or what was it? Like, AWS, or what was the?
Well, yeah, so I started the Sydney Data Engineering Meetup back in 2017,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I was also part of the serverless meetup here, and then sort of took it over probably about 6 to 12 months after I started the data
Mm.
engineering meetup. But I was also involved in the Alexa meetup, like
Oh,
chatbot meetups and
geez.
stuff.
It's a
So it
lot of
was a bit
meetups.
of a yeah. I was just I also started the DBT meetup here in Sydney as well.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I was doing the rounds, but I guess I got a lot out of them. So I guess it wasn't purely altruistic. It was just like actually I just found how it accelerated my learning path was just really really fantastic, and that really just got me hooked, I guess.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, I started my data engineering meetup in Salt Lake City back, was it 2018? I had run the see a few other meetups too, like the Python one, and right, and so
Yeah, nice.
it takes, you're absolutely right. Like it takes forever to build momentum. I really feel like too the 2017 2018 time period for data engineering in particular was a kind of an awkward, kind of like the awkward teenage years, or maybe the awkward like baby years of those types of meetups, right? Because I think people are still trying to figure out what data engineering was, let alone build a community around it. So
Yeah, no one really. Yeah, it was definitely far from taking hold within the market. Like no one was really hiring data engineering roles. Everyone was still sort of hiring for data scientists and stuff like that.
mhm,
And so, like the folks that you would attract to a data engineering meetup, you wouldn't accidentally be there. Like
right.
it's like you were definitely a data engineer if you were at that meetup, which was kind of cool because it was, you could have a really focused meetup. I wasn't really ever interested in just having 1,000 people attend the meetup. I really wanted to actually have conversations with practitioners, people who are really sort of passionate about the field and trying to push it forward, which was amazing that it worked out that way because
Well, that's the best part of a meetup too, is conversations, networking. I've always wanted to just do a meetup where, I guess it's these low key happy hours that are happening now, but it's like just skip the presentation and just have the community conversations. Like that's, I notice a lot of people just show up for that. The meetup is the presentation is almost a formality in some ways, depending on the topic, right?
Yeah, we haven't actually started adopting that, but I've been watching folks like yourself and others do it over in the US, and it's an interesting trend because I think there has been like a bit of a saturation of content online over the last couple of years,
Yeah.
and everyone's just like watching 50 YouTubes each day and stuff like that, and people just want to connect, don't they? They just want to get together, do a bit of networking, have a bit of a chat, and it's probably a format that we need to explore more, perhaps over the coming months, and to just see how it can work in the Australian market, because I think there's a lot of value, isn't it?
There is. I mean, even we're hanging out after the conference at the bars at like in Melbourne, for example, right? I think there were quite a
Yeah,
few people there, and that was reminded me a lot of the low key happy hour events that we have in the States, and now I guess globally, right? It's happening all over, but it was a cool vibe. I felt like that was just a get to chat with people, in a way that. So I think that also like a conference, there's a certain I don't know. There's a certain decorum that comes with conversations at conferences, and there's conference etiquette and so forth, and
yeah.
so it's a bit it's just got its own vibe. And again, everything's got its place, right? But you know,
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've been looking at the like the photos and stuff like that, announcements on LinkedIn. It does look like it's got a really good vibe, and perhaps we can really sort of fire it up again during the conferences and see where that takes us. Perhaps I think there's something to it.
yeah, I think so. That's super cool. So, I mean, walk me through the what's the for the audience, I suppose, for their education. What's the data engineering and startup scene like in Australia?
Yeah, so I guess the startup ecosystem in Australia, is pretty strong. Like we've got some, pretty big ones. I think everyone's heard of Canva now, so that's hit global scale, and we've got other ones like BuildKite and CultureAmp, and some other really interesting ones as well. So there's a pretty healthy startup ecosystem, but not so much in terms of, I guess, data engineering startups, people that are building products in this space. Um, we've got a couple of small players that are just on the cusp of sort of starting to really get established. A startup called Omnada, run by James Weekly, and Dean Ewan is running a startup called Carta. That's
Mm.
a kind of like a data catalog. And so part of, I guess, the work that I'm doing in the data engineering meetup and DataEngBytes is, well, I guess it's not super deliberate, but my hope is that we're going to see a lot more data engineering startups flourish as a result of, I guess, um, trying to sort of plant these seeds of ideas in folks' minds and so we can see a bit more of a data engineering startup scene.
Mm, that's interesting. How's the I guess the have you guys been impacted at all by the cash crunch like we have in the States?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last couple of years have just been absolutely gangbusters. I don't know whether you've got that expression over in the
Yeah, we use
States.
that here too. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I think it was getting to the point where data engineers were in such high demand. Some of us were probably working, side gigs as well and stuff like that. And so I think every data engineer in town was just practically burnt out to a crisp. And so I think, like in some ways the tech crunch, as sad as it sounds, was kind of slightly positive in the sense that people could finally take a bit of a break and just kind of decompress from such a tough couple of years. But yeah, there's been lots of layoffs in the FANG companies,
Yeah.
over in the US, and that's impacted locally because quite a few of their employees got laid off locally. The big consulting firms, for whatever reason, like I run a smaller consulting firm, but pretty much all consultancies across the board have had a really quiet first half of the year for 2023,
Yeah.
and so it's been pretty brutal. There's lots of layoffs. Running meetups recently, whenever I'm chatting to folks that rock up, they're just like, "Yeah, I've been laid off. Of looking for work and stuff like that." It's really sad to see. I mean, I think a lot of the folks that have been laid off, they've been snapped up pretty quickly. There is a lot of full time roles, but like if you're pretty hell bent on staying as a consultant, it's really tough times. It's I found it really difficult, running my consultancy through these times, and yeah, it's sad, but I guess it's one of those things that had to happen. Interest rates had to rise. That's shortened the runway for a lot of startups because the
Oh
cost of
yeah.
money is going up, and I guess that has an impact on the startup scene. But I guess when you look at startups, a lot of startups are coming out of say smaller consultancies, if you will, and so a lot of the time, in the early days of the startup, they can typically bootstrap, but I guess with consulting drying up, that sort of forms a few challenges as well. So we'll see what comes out of this period, I guess. So yeah, it's definitely had an impact over here for sure.
Oh yeah, and definitely over here too, for obvious reasons. But I think it's a healthy reset. I don't know. I just saw companies spending money on projects that I don't know. It's good for experimentation, but I was it didn't seem to have any goal at the end of the day, right? It was just let's scoop up data engineers, let's have them do data stuff, and so it was. Some companies were really smart about it, but I saw quite a bit of LARPing, I suppose, as well. Sort of going through the motions with data and spending a lot of money, and I really wasn't sure what a lot of it was for at the end of the day. So, but
Yeah, it felt like a bit of a gold rush, a bit of a land grab. It's just like, hey, just scoop up as many data engineers as possible because who knows what sort of data projects you might have down the line, and
yeah.
who knows how many data engineers are going to be available. And honestly, I've spoken to a few folks. Some of the salaries that folks have been on recently, during the heyday, over the last couple of years, it's going to be a challenge to stay at that same sort of salary, um, over the coming years because there's going to have to be a little bit of an adjustment because people were probably getting a 50% pay rise.
Oh, easy, easy.
It's just we don't quite have the same salaries over in the US, but I think there's definitely a big correction happening on that front, and people are
Mm,
having to tighten their belts, which is tough as well. So
it is tough, but but that's also where community comes into play too. I was actually talking with a group of people yesterday on a Slack group, and we were talking about inevitably there's always this discussion that happens every few months with me and my friends where it's like, meetup.com sucks. Let's figure out a way to come up with a better meetup.com.
Well,
So
who's going to solve that problem? It's like it feels like Meetup.com's, they finally started a bit of feature development recently, but still, it's just so terrible. It's
it's
just
such
like
a horrible app, and it has been. I mean, I've had the same qualms for at least like 11 plus years now
yeah,
with Meetup. It sucks.
so bad. Yeah,
It does.
Someone please solve it. It's at the moment, like, I think the only reason why anyone's there is just because of eyeballs, like he's just like, there is a lot of folks for whatever reason on that platform, as bad as that is. And, it's the only reason why they've got a viable business, I guess.
Yeah. It's something. They keep getting traded back and forth though. PE firms will buy them up, and they'll get acquired and then sold off for. So I don't know, man. It's interesting though, because it's the same app they're using for like real estate, people and yoga moms and like, so I mean, I've always wanted to have a platform that was really, I guess, user group friendly, right? We used to call meetups back in the user groups, and more technology focused. But the main thing we were talking about too yesterday was just with all the layoffs and stuff. It was, sorry, that's my dog barking up there. It's just a need for community, right? Especially with the downturn, I feel like the importance of community is becoming more and more vital, right? I mean, I don't think people are under the illusion they're going to go find their next job at a meetup. I mean, everyone's kind of in the same boat right now. But at least if you can come together and then have kind of a quasi support group, right? I think it's pretty big.
Yeah, because I mean, even at home, like my wife's an accountant and stuff like that. She doesn't necessarily have a great insight into all of the peculiarities about the tech industry and stuff like that. Why all of a sudden have things gotten so bad when things have been amazing for probably the last 5 years or something like that. And so having, that just common group of folks to sort of talk to and chat through those problems and even, perhaps, point you in the right direction of something to keep you going, perhaps, during these tough times, that's invaluable, I think. And I think that, that's, and it's also a really good time. Like if you're, not currently employed, it's also a really good time to, sharpen your tools and stuff like that, get some inspiration and stuff. So meetups can definitely provide that as well.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, you learn about new practices, new tech, and yeah, I totally agree. And it's a really good way to build your network too. I think the biggest thing that you need when you're going into a downturn is just it's all about who you know at that point. You can shotgun out job applications to everybody in every company under the sun. I know people doing that right now. I know a lot of people doing that right now. It sucks, and like you're not hearing anybody getting back to you. Typically, it's hard.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, I don't think I've applied for a job in the last 10 years.
Me neither.
It's always been through word of mouth or just someone who I know. And now as a consultant, I can't say that I'm terribly good at like sales and stuff like that or awareness building. I just get a lot of people just coming to me and just going, hey, can you help us out with this thing? And so, I think people kind of probably, it's that hidden secret that a lot of like sort of young people in the field just don't know, that like a lot of the success of your in your career is just basically 99% based on your network and who you know and stuff like that, and very little's actually to do with potentially like that degree or all of those skills that you got.
It's so true.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's why I encourage a lot of the new graduates too. Like in my class that I teach, or people that I mentor, or people that I talk to. I'm just like, go to meetups. Start building your network now. It's like, because these are the people that are going to help you out. And you're going to help them out, right? When times are good and when times are not so good. That's just sort of how the pendulum swings. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's crap. But what you do have what you can keep doing is building your network of friends and allies, and I think more importantly, help people out too. Pay it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic way to sort of like, perhaps if someone senior that's been laid off, you can do a bit of mentoring. And as a meetup organizer, I really love giving new folks in the field or junior data engineers the opportunity to get their first speaking gig and really establish themselves, and sort of help, sort of elevate and promote like their blogs and stuff like
Mm.
that. I think there's a lot of good that you can do, and those folks have the opportunity to really establish themselves as subject matter experts in particular niches of data engineering. And another great thing, and this is probably a bit of a selfish plug, but volunteer at a meetup or at the DataEngBytes conference. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you've got a lot of free time, because that is absolutely a fantastic way. A lot of meetup organizers and conference volunteers have gone on to some pretty amazing things off the back of like the network that they've built,
Hmm.
being a part of the organization. So definitely worth giving it a shot if you found yourself with a lot of free time recently.
What do you think about data engineering versus analytics engineering?
Um, well, I think like after a little while of couple of years of running the data engineering meetup, DBT started taking hold, and I think and they kind of coined this new field of analytics engineering, which I think it's a really it was a innovative name, and I think it's a really pointed name because like I think for a data analyst to make the transition to a full blown data engineer was a big leap. You needed a lot of different skills. Like you need to kind of know a lot about a variety of databases and programming constructs that you know it takes a while to sort of get those skills and stuff like that. And like I think analytics engineering was that data analyst that had learned a little bit of Git. They'd learned all the software engineering practices necessary to run a DBT project and the like. And they could yeah, I mean, I guess like a data analyst has always been really capable at sort of using data, but an analytics engineer could also then go and sort of fetch some of the data themselves and stuff like that, because there was tools like Fivetran and Snowflake that made it a lot easier for those folks to just kind of fish rather than be given a
Mm.
fish. Um, but I think it so Wilsit's a fantastic new job title that I think really addresses, um, I guess that niche between sort of like a that distance between a data analyst and a data engineer in terms of skills. I feel like it doesn't really address the like I don't feel like data engineers are dead just yet, because
Just yet.
just yet, or even ever. Like I think there still are sysadmins kicking around, and like sysadmins probably evolved into DevOps engineers and the like, and I think data engineers aren't going to die out anytime soon. There's still an insane amount of compute that's still not in the cloud, and like analytics engineers are really sort of aimed at like a lot of like greenfields, and startups that are born in the cloud. Everything's accessible by Fivetran and the like, and like, which is an absolute fantastic tool, and there's a lot of really amazing innovations in this space. But there's still a lot of on-prem work, and will some of
Oh,
these
yeah.
tools do connect with on-prem. It's just like there's just a lot of data engineering work out there, that's just not going to go away anytime soon. And so, whilst I think analytics engineering is flourishing, I think data engineering is just a lot of fun. Everyone's got this itch to scratch where, as like software engineering professionals, we're always just wanting to learn that, next thing. And I think analytics engineering is still a little bit, I guess, constrained, if you will. It's, there's a lot of analytics engineering wanting to make that next step to data engineering. So I can't see data engineering dying out anytime soon. It's just that, perhaps the field as a whole, data is a very vast, I don't think people appreciate how vast data is as a field, not just data engineering, but data engineering as well. And I think there's probably more job titles to come. Like I think,
Yeah.
the data modelers. I think that it's a passion of yours. That's going to be a lot bigger soon. And there's a variety of other skills that'll come into play. Data governance engineers and things like that. I think like we're going to see a lot more of these sort of job titles. But I think as the first data hire for a startup, analytics engineer seems to be probably the go-to, potentially a data engineer. So that's my rough view of the world at the moment.
View of the world. Yeah, you're absolutely right too. I think the migrations from on-prem or hybrid cloud, something like that, right? That's there's still a ton of opportunity there. I mean, we're only getting started. I mean, cloud penetration still is not massively huge, in the grand scheme of things. So
Yeah, I think like it's a ridiculous number. Like 80% of workloads are still not even near the,
exactly.
the cloud. So it's like and that's why you hear of Adam Sepulevsky of Amazon Web Services, their new CEO, ex Tableau. He's just saying he's always saying we're just getting started, and
Hmm.
that's really the reason for it. And so and other vendors like Snowflake and stuff like that, they're all saying a similar thing, and I think so there's still a long way to go for us.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Well, and some workloads are moving back to on-prem too. We're seeing that in the States. There's a cloud repatriation happening. So
yeah, driven by DHH and the like. That'll be interesting. I mean, I think like those discussion points. I think it is good to have a balanced perspective because not everything uh, in the cloud is sunshine and rainbows. There have been some pretty shocking bills and cloud spend out there that just aren't aren't practical or pragmatic in especially post zero interest rate.
right,
You know,
things are a bit tighter now. But I think a lot of that comes back to an education issue too. I mean, if you look at the workloads, you consult, I consult, right? Every time I see, shocks and surprises in the cloud, it's normally because of a lack of awareness on how to do things properly, like the cloud way,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Lift,
I
lift and
mean,
shift, classic example.
yeah, there's lift and shift in the application space, and that the sure as heck is in the data engineering space.
Oh
It's
yeah,
you definitely do not want to use, say, for instance, Snowflake in the same way that you would use Oracle on-prem or something like that. It's there are ways to make Snowflake extremely cost effective,
hmm
and generally it is big fanboy of Snowflake, but
oh yeah, same.
equally, it's I think I forgot who made the comment, but it's usually a data engineer or sort of a data analyst, is very rarely in control of like the credit card of the company. Like they can't even approve a $50 expense,
Right.
although they can rack up like a $5,000,
Oh yeah.
compute spend bill on your cloud or data infrastructure. And so I think with anything, having some good controls in place and some really, to your point, some really solid education, getting the consultants in and sort of like and learning the fundamentals,
Oh yeah.
like what your books are all about, is really important because even just simply doing a bit of data modeling and not sort of computing the whole known universe of data within your company to achieve that Tableau report can have some pretty massive cost savings over the course of a year. So there's a lot to be gained from having a well architected data infrastructure, and so I think there's an importance to sort of going back to the fundamentals and also sharpening your tools.
Yeah, I always encourage people to say you're going to be in a cloud, go get the certifications. I mean,
Absolutely.
you've got plenty, I've got plenty, and when you study these certs, what you realize is the cloud wants you to do things a certain way. You can have your own opinion about how you want to do things. I mean, I've been using AWS since like 2010 or something like that.
Yep.
And I got my cert in 2017 or something like that. So in that 7-year time period, I developed a lot of bad habits, right? I had my own opinion about, gosh, VPCs. I know how those work, right? I know how subnets work and all that stuff. Yeah, you have your opinion, and then there's the opinion of like the cloud that wants you to do things a certain way. They'll save you a lot of time and whatnot. And after going through that, I'm like, yeah, you should definitely learn to do things the way, say, AWS wants you to do them, or GCP or Azure. It's going to save you a lot of time, and you'll just be very competent. So
yeah, it's the same with, like, I think DBT Labs. They've got their own
yeah,
server now, Databricks, Snowflake as well,
oh
and
yeah,
you see a lot of DBT out there where, folks are doing things, perhaps, there are a few blog posts away from getting an optimal implementation of DBT. So it's definitely worthwhile sort of educating yourself, because, there's a lot of really, really cool best practices that you can learn, like Slim CI and things like that. It's fantastic stuff. So
did
definitely
you do
well worth.
have you done the DBT cert?
I was looking at it, but I got lazy. I've got staff members now, Joe. So I'm like, I'm not doing certs anymore. You do certs.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do a cert again. Who knows? Maybe I'll get a hair and go renew one, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so much work to study for these things and to take them. So
Yeah, we've been deep building a product recently at the company, and so I didn't want to sort of take, I should probably renew some of my pro level AWS certs or whatever, but then
yeah,
you got to kind of just put a couple of days of deep study into them, and it's just like it's a bit of a distraction when you've got
it
a
can
million
be
other
for sure.
things. Mm.
Well, yeah, and that's and as long as you're compliant, with it, whatever partnership tier you're on with that company, then it's all that matters. So
Yeah, just hire people. That's
yeah, just hire people. So that's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, kind of back to the data space. I mean, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you see? I mean, you work with a lot of companies and see a lot of things. Like, what do you think we're doing right, and what do you think we could be doing better as
I
an
think.
industry?
Yeah, I think. Look, honestly, I think there's been bit of a Cambrian explosion of data startups and AI startups and all of the rest, and we're on the cusp of everything to come out of LLMs, and everyone's adding a little bit of AI to their data data products at the moment, which is fantastic to see. I think like predictive SQL and stuff like that. Code completion. That's really, really awesome stuff. But I'm seeing a lot of I think with when you look at the modern data stack, there's a lot of complexity tax associated with integrating all of the different pieces in the stack, and there's a lot of micro products. And I don't know whether I'm going to, get into trouble. I definitely don't want to put anyone's noses out of joint, but I think, there definitely needs to be a bit of a consolidation in the space, because whilst we started off with the all-in-one informaticas of the world and stuff like that, and then we've just kind of unbundled everything. I think we've unbundled, it's like sort of the trend of microservices, and now everyone's saying, I think, monoliths probably aren't that bad, actually.
Right.
And I think we've gotten to that point with the modern data stack where you just rather than actually sort of building any sort of useful analyses within your business, you're like, our whole data team is, focused on integrating the next new tool to solve this next problem of, sort
Oh
of like
yeah.
DBT tests didn't quite do the trick, so we're going to do this, integrate this, test specific tool, with the and then integrate this dashboard to collect all of the DBT test metrics, and and it's just and then there's another tool after that for observability and the like, and I just feel fundamentally that a lot of these tools have a data catalog at their core, and like you see a lot of derivatives of potentially sort of data catalog businesses. It's something
Mm.
that like we're trying to sort of work on building a product for at the moment, where you've got like a data catalog, and then you've got off the back of that like a data security tool, a data observability tool, a tool that sort of collates all of your test metrics and stuff like that. And you've got 4 or 5, and then you've got like data governance tool, data security, provisioning, and stuff like that. And all fundamentally at their core is a data catalog, and perhaps your Active Directory and stuff like that to know who are the users and the groups. And and I just feel, rather than going through like 6 months of consulting to integrate all of these various different products, potentially there's a low cost product that's a bit more accessible to startups, that could be created to sort of solve around the edges of the modern data stack, that takes away a little bit of this integration hell that we're all facing when we're sort of putting together. But maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Is this a
Maybe
product you're working on?
it's something. Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm looking at. I think like in the data catalog space, there's and what can come out of that. There's just I think there's there we can put a bit of downward pressure on the entry point price, and sort of open that space up to startups a bit more. We'll see what happens, but it'll be interesting, because I think like, say for instance, the ticket price could be I don't know. Sometimes I hear prices of about $100,000 US. No startup is going to pay that off the shelf price, and whether a startup needs that level of sophistication. Does a startup want a data governance tool and a data security tool that'll provision access to both Snowflake and Tableau and all of these other sort of data engineering tools,
Mm-hmm.
and centralize that RBAC or ABAC, if you will. So it'll be interesting. It's something that we're working on, but we'll see whether it's got traction and finds product market fit, I guess.
Yeah, there are some companies I've seen that are some similar-ish to that notion, like Immuta, for example, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
and they've gotten a lot of traction. They're doing really, really well. Full disclosure, Turner partners with them too, but I heard
awesome.
through the grapevine they're killing it, right? But it's there is a lot of complexity for sure. I think it's interesting because the pendulum always swings. I always joke with Matt, my co-founder, that inevitably everything becomes Informatica. So it's sort of
It
the
is.
immutable law of the universe and data tooling. So
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to do sort of like to see what happens in that space, because it's pretty funny. Like, is it on purpose that people are purposely doing these micro products because they're afraid of being viewed as the next Immuta, or no, sorry, not Immuta, fantastic.
Informatica,
So
yeah,
Informatica, not to say anything bad about
yeah. I
Informatica,
mean,
but it
they
is a
make a lot of
tool.
money, man. They make so much money. It's
Yeah,
crazy. But I don't know. I mean, there's some. I think that they're kind of a meme. But here's the deal. It's like there's a lot of. It's kind of where things are going, right? With consolidation. I mean, even if you look at where Snowflake's going with the data cloud, or Databricks is going with their product, it's like it's an all-in-one platform, which is no different. My whole point with the Informatica thing is just like everything becomes all in one at some point. Like it's just inevitably how it is. So, and then you go back to the other side of the pendulum, and then it unbundles, and then you're kind of where we are today, and it just kind of does that. So,
Yeah, and I think like the big question that I've got in my head is how do you make that bundling feel safe for
mm,
for the end user? It's just like, I mean, Snowflake have done it extremely well.
yeah,
Same with Databricks, where they've kind of embraced open source and they've said, look, you know, um, hop on our data cloud or our data lake
yep,
house and stuff like that. And if you don't like the experience very much, hopefully it's not too much effort for you to, switch providers and go to, the newest cool kid in town. And, and a lot of these providers are, also AWS and the other clouds. They're, sort of putting downward pressure on their own prices as well, doing price
yep,
drops on, things like, storage and compute and stuff like that. And so I think, if and if you can create one of these sort of like all-encompassing startups that, or like products that can solve for a lot of these integration challenges that we're facing around the data observability and all of the rest. I think the real critical point would be is offering that sort of offboarding pathway
yeah,
in and a set of APIs that sort of make you sort of like, I guess, um, you know, um, not have this feeling of being completely trapped as soon as sign your life away. I guess, yeah.
yeah.
But
Who
we'll
knows?
see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah. Well, we will see. Like we were talking about earlier, I think it's good for the industry in some ways. There's a correction. I think it's going to lead to better practices, better tools. That I don't know. We'll see. Fast forward in a couple of years, and we'll have a better idea. So
Yeah, it's exciting, and look, I definitely I love the fact that there's so many sort of like micro products coming to the fore. I think they're fantastic ideas. It's just, I think just and it's great that we're living in a time where um, 2-person startups can just like build an awesome product idea and get it out to the market in a scalable fashion. But it has had some negative side effects, and I think like having this conveyor belt of fantastic ideas that we can sort of integrate into potentially, or do we have like sort of marketplaces? I know a lot of the major players in the space are looking to create marketplaces where you can sort of much more easily integrate with some of these smaller products. So who knows where it's heading? But I'm kind of betting that there's going to be a little bit of a bundling happen.
yeah,
I think you're still going to have your major sort of data compute players like Snowflake and Databricks. You'll definitely have other compute players like Fivetran and Hevo and all of those sorts of players that are doing your sort of your data ingestion. I'm sure you're going to still see reverse ETL in a really big way, or data activation. But then there's what happens once the data's there, with your transformation and also just, your observability and stuff like that. There's a lot of pain still in that space. I
yeah,
don't think any sort of data teams like really coming out publicly and saying, you know what, we've just absolutely nailed our data. I think, our data is just absolutely perfect. It's like, no, everyone I talk to is still a little bit uncomfortable in that space. So, which is why sort of like data contracts and observability are just so important. Yeah.
oh yeah, 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 exactly. Cool. Kind of wrapping up. DataEngBytes. You want to give a quick shout out about that and um, some
Y-
details?
Yeah, so this year we're in 4 cities. Joe, you're back, which is really incredible. So we're
Nice,
super excited. We've also got Ryan Boyd locked in of MotherDuck,
nice.
is the company behind DuckDB. So that's going to be and DuckDB's had incredible take up in Australia recently. Had a lot of talks from a lot of folks. But yeah, so we're in 4 cities this year, not just Sydney and Melbourne. So we're going to have a little bit of a caravan of international speakers travel from city to city, and we're also going to have some fantastic local talent as well. So we're kicking off in Perth on the 22nd of August. It's at the Ritz-Carlton. It's a fantastic new venue. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, it's like I was surprised that we could afford that one actually.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just a wonderful venue. It's going to be really nice, and Perth's just such a beautiful city. I was there last week, and then after that, on the 25th, on the Friday, we're in Sydney. We're at the Hilton Sydney. That's going to be a really nice venue. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then the following week, on the Tuesday, the 29th of August, we're in Brisbane at the Brisbane Convention and Entertainment Centre. We're in this little nook of the complex, and it's going to be a really fun vibe, I think. And I'm just super excited actually about the Brisbane data engineering scene. I think there's some pretty cool stuff happening there, and it's just Brisbane's a really fun town. And then finally, we head back to Melbourne on the 31st of August. We're at the Edge at Federation Square. It is a spectacular venue. Melbourne's got some really nice architecture, as you pointed out.
And coffee.
And coffee as well. So I think all of our international speakers are in for a real treat. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've still got a few spots open, so hit me up if you're inspired from this podcast. But yeah, just going to be a lot of fun. It takes a lot of time out of my day, out of my year, in fact, running this conference. But I only do it because it's been amazing fun. I probably wouldn't have met you otherwise, Joe.
No.
It's been a wild ride. I don't know how many more conferences I've got it in me, but it's really exciting when it really comes together. So, and thanks for being such a big supporter of it.
Oh yeah, huge fan. Yeah, thanks for having me out last year. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, huge fan of what you guys are doing, and I think it's only the beginning. My take is, why stop with Australia? Why not have it around the world? And you'll take a few years off your life, but it's for a good cause. So
absolutely, yeah. Who knows? Sky's the limit. Yeah, no, we're having a lot of fun. So stay tuned for next year, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome, Peter. For people who want to learn more about you, how can they find you?
So yeah, I'm on Twitter at Pete Hanssens. DataEngBytes is at dataengconf.com.au. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think my handle's Peter Hanssens there. So, or GitHub, Slack, all the usual things, but probably, or, just start at peterhanssens.com.au. That's another way to find me, or cloudshuttle.com.au. I've got too many web, but anyway, you'll find me. You will.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, man. Looking forward to seeing you soon. So
thanks so much, Jay. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Of course. Yeah.
Bye.